Hello everyone, Matt527 here, and I am bringing you another commentary. And today marks the 10th anniversary of when I started making commentaries. And to celebrate this milestone, I decided that I will do a commentary on my first ever commentary I ever did. And if you didn't already know, it's the one on the original version of Alex Rochon, formerly Peanut3423's top 10 worst video game cliches list. Good place to start doing commentaries, but the commentary itself wasn't very good. And I know I already did 4 self-commentaries in the past, but I feel it's probably okay as long as you don't do them too often. Now, so you can tell which one is which, I'll be using Roxy as my commentary avatar this time like I did in my 5th degree commentary I did 2 years ago. So, without any further ado, let's begin.
Hello everyone, Matt527 here, and I'm going to be trying something new.
Is it going to be actually putting emotion into your voice when recording? Oh right, that video was my first ever video to use my voice.
A few moments later.
Now, I'm sure that a lot of people who have watched my top 10 list should know that I was inspired by Peanut3423 to make them.
I'm was. Did you actually say was? No one talks like that. And how many times do I have to bring up how easy it is to edit out long pauses with audio splits?
I've been a fan of him for almost 2 years. If you're wondering why I haven't subbed to his channel, Peanut3423 blocked me, and YouTube has this stupid "you cannot subscribe to people who have blocked you" policy. He blocked me because I kept misinterpreting stuff, but I've improved since then.
Yes, you've improved since then, but only by a little. You've gotten better at respecting other people's opinions, and that's about it. You still scream at people for the pettiest of reasons, you still don't know how to properly make vocal videos, and you're still stalking a female user named Rochon. And no, I don't need to give proof of that. Since I'm you from the future, you can take that as a confession.
12 seconds later.
Now this will be different even though it's my first commentary, because not only will I provide constructive criticism, I will also give examples of some of his cliches.
And you're stuttering! Even after you watch the commentaries on Joshua8428 and learn that you need a script for these, you still can't be bothered to edit out your stuttering.
Keep in mind that I'm not a professional commentator like Rochon, currently known as Rochon Rises. There are some instances where I take things too seriously or see things the wrong way.
You don't say! I never would have guessed by how poorly made this commentary is.
After you make the commentary. Let's get on with the show.
Just as I finish this pointlessly long pause. Anyways, my download quality back then was really bad, so I'm going to splice in Alex's video so it's more pleasing to the eyes.
Later.
I'm sure by now you all know how much I love final boss battles and how I especially love the build-up to some of these battles. But of course, not every finale is like that. Oh no, then we have those final bosses. You know, the final bosses that come right the out of nowhere and always leave you wondering whether it's actually the final boss.
I'm just gonna throw this out there. Hey, I never said I would only commentate on myself in this commentary. But anyways, Alex, Dark Bowser, the example you showed here, actually didn't come out of nowhere. It's still Dark Star, just in a different form. And we've heard that Fawful was planning on using the powers of the Dark Star throughout half the game by this point. And even if you're going to complain about not being able to fight Fawful in the final fight, guess what this phase of the battle has Dark Star fused with? You guessed it, Fawful.
10 seconds later.
Likely the most infamous example is Necron from Final Fantasy IX, a boss who appears at the last minute, has an ambiguous backstory, and is wholly unoriginal. I mean, wow! Not only does this guy have glaring similarities to X-Death, but he also directly rips off dialogue from—
I'm skipping the next scene because it contains copyright material that could easily result in the destruction of my account.
And here's another problem with my older videos. Thinking that showing just a few seconds of copyrighted footage is enough to get my channel terminated. If you were to show a whole minute of copyrighted footage, then we'd have a problem. But let me play the full clip Alex used.
Directly rips off dialogue from Yoda!
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
See that? That was only 7 seconds. And you even cut out the mention of Yoda's name, which just makes you look even more pathetic. I know Jeepers Media's video on Viacom flagging down videos with TV footage was scary and all, and I know the copyright system on YouTube is broken, but it's not that broken. Besides, even if your video did get flagged down, it wouldn't result in the destruction of your account that quickly. You'd need to get hit with 3 copyright strikes in order for that to happen.
That's just shameful! When the final boss of a game is something that we haven't been anticipating like Necron, the fight just comes across as not just rushed, but a complete letdown.
I agree that random final bosses are annoying, but sometimes they can be somewhat fun.
You're completely missing the point that Alex is making. Even if an out-of-nowhere final boss is fun, it can still be frustrating that the game developers actually thought that throwing in a random final boss from out of nowhere was a good idea. Did you even hear what Alex said about how they always ruin the emotional intensity of the game you're playing?
Later.
Situations where you lose all your powers annoy me, especially when you get used to some of the abilities given to you at the start. When you suddenly lose them, it really throws you off by how weak you become and how enemies you could have easily overcome earlier become much harder to kill.
I agree that it's annoying, but at least it's a good challenge.
Yes, it is still a challenge. And judging by how Alex is complaining about it means that this is obviously not the kind of challenge he's looking for.
Sometimes the situation in which you lose your abilities is completely ridiculous. In Metroid Prime, you lose your abilities after just getting thrown against a wall!
Might not have been the wall that made her lose her abilities. It could have been the explosion that threw her against the wall. Maybe she lost her items because the place was self-destructing. The wall could have been high voltage.
But she's gone through more dangerous substances like Phazon and lava, and that didn't make her lose all of her abilities. Yet this is enough to cause a complete power down? Also, that avatar choice you used did not fit with what you were saying. At all. I know you're mostly just alternating between avatars in the set order, but this is why that doesn't work.
Later that same evening.
This is also prominent in adventure games like the Zelda series, where in almost every dungeon the boss is killed in some way by the main weapon that is found in there. That's just as bad because it's like that in nearly every game in the series. Try something new for once!
So you're saying that it's just as bad as a weak point that's completely obvious. I respect your opinion, but you're treating it as an outright fact. Some people might think it makes Zelda bosses more enjoyable. I mean, even when you know what weapon to use to kill them, the weak spot isn't always completely obvious or downright insulting your intelligence, like, say, Naval Piranha from Yoshi's Island.
Work on your pronunciation skills. It's Naval Piranha, not Naval Piranha.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
And worst of all, going all the way through a jungle and back to get a wedding ring!
I agree that it's annoying to go through the jungle, especially floating over those pits, but I can do it in like 5 minutes, not to brag.
5 minutes can still be an annoying interruption, especially if you just want to get to the next chapter already.
Besides, do you know how important a wedding ring is? If you're married and lose it, you're forced to break up with the person you're married to.
Marriages are not completely based on the ring. They're based on the couple's love for each other. It is true that wedding rings are a great symbol of their marriage, but there's more to getting married than just the ring.
Later.
But since then, both of these obstacles have spread like cancer to almost every other video game series ever. Half of their appearances in games don't make a lot of sense.
I'm looking at this picture right here, and I think the spikes are there because Dr. Robotnik probably buried them underground.
Hey, look at that! You have the original video's time bar at the bottom of the screen. Seriously, there's an easier and quicker way to take still images from the video you're commentating on.
Moments later.
In the first Mega Man, there are so many spikes in Wily's fortress that it makes you wonder how Wily gets around his fortress each day without getting gored on his own death traps.
Maybe he uses a flying machine. Maybe he uses the remote to turn his traps on and off. Maybe he uses the secret door he used in the number 5 entry on your list.
Maybe? You're refuting his arguments using a maybe? That really makes it look like you're reaching for counterpoints to make. Anyways, because this was a 2011 video, and because Movie Maker kept acting up when I tried to upload that commentary all in one part, this commentary ended up being 2 parts like a lot of first commentaries. So time to move on to the next part.
2 hours later.
I'm not a capitalist. So whenever I see someone make an ending to a game that signals an obvious cash-in sequel, I feel a bit of my faith in humanity die inside.
The only games I have that reveal an obvious sequel are Banjo-Kazooie, Kingdom Hearts 2, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, Metroid Prime, and Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, whether the sequels are good or not. But maybe it's just me.
That's still a decently sized list of sequel-baiting endings. I get that you're bringing up examples of stuff that fall under these cliches, but the way you worded that makes it sound like you're trying to proclaim that there aren't many.
If you're going to make an ending to a video game that obviously indicates a sequel, at least have some dignity and make it entertaining!
Some people may find it entertaining. You're treating your opinion as a fact again.
This is a common problem throughout the commentary, but Alex is referring to in his opinion. You don't always have to say, in my opinion, every time you do this. I mean, sure, one could argue that stating your opinion as a fact makes you come off like a jerk, but you're thinking too much about that.
Just then.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to skip this next scene because
Enough.
You're right, it is getting annoying.
Just like how you clearly use a looping clip of King Hyrcanian saying enough. You could have just downloaded the whole cutscene instead of downloading a looping video of him saying that, since you can see it clearly cutting at the end of the clip.
10 seconds later.
Characters that have a dark past in video games will very often take any given opportunity to monologue about every single depressing detail about their past, especially with the rise of voice acting.
Okay, to quote Shoutstar1224 in his third degree commentary, mute button for the win.
And that was also not a very good point Shadowstar made, because people shouldn't have to use the mute button. Also, you cut off a bit too late, because you waited until right after Samus said the word not.
Even a fragment. None of the baby remained on me. I knew it to be true, but still couldn't help looking at my palm for a sign. Never again would I encounter the baby. Never. The finality of it struck me once again.
If you're wondering what Samus is referring to, she's talking about the infant Metroid from Metroid 2 Return of Samus that she adopted. Sorry for the spoiler, but it was spoiled at the beginning of Super Metroid 2.
I know you're saying that to the audience, but you're really making it sound like you're saying that to Alex, even though you're not.
Thousands of tears later.
Okay, here's my example. In Kingdom Hearts 350 over 2 days, and in Kingdom Hearts 2, Roxas broods, but it's not too...
I edited nothing there. That line literally got cut off just like that.
Cutscene deaths are annoying, but at least they're, well, deaths.
I think what you're trying to say is they're supposed to have you feel the emotion with the game. You know, like when a character in a video game dies, you're supposed to feel sad?
Yeah, that's even worse. When you word it like that, it sounds idiotic. Maybe there's a good reason Alex just left it at least they're, well, deaths.
If you're going to go through all the drama of having a character enter a near inescapable deadly scenario...
Wait, did you see that subtitle? And he put in the subtitle, "Yeah, Cloud, go through that scenery to your heart's content." Was that subtitle really necessary? I mean, what do you mean by chew that scenery? Are you talking about Aerith's soul? Are you talking about you want him to chew her soul out or something? Because she's already dead!
Funny thing, Alex actually left a comment on this part where he explained that chewing the scenery essentially means overacting and being melodramatic. That's what he meant by chew the scenery. Also, where the heck did you get the idea of him meaning to chew Aerith's soul out?
Just then.
What's worse is that these survivors survive after the most impossible situations. An example of which is Young, who is saved from an exploding room by fairies.
Maybe I'm sounding stupid by saying this, but fairies sound like a reasonable explanation as to how he'd survive that, because, don't forget, fairies have great magic powers, so that sounds like a good reason for why he'd survive. I'm not saying you're wrong for finding this an insulting plot twist, because yeah, that definitely sounds like it would ruin a dramatic moment, but if he's being saved by creatures with magical powers, it's not as impossible as you're making it out to be.
Moments later.
Unoriginal villains. You know what I'm talking about. Those unthreatening hacks that just...
I'm pretty sure most of you know what I'm going to be doing right now. Yep, that's right. And I don't know how to convert the video to an MP3.
Then look it up.
The absolute worst offender of this kind, by far, is X-Death from Final Fantasy V.
I saw a lot of comments complaining about what you just said there.
Well, that's their fault for getting so salty over someone having a different opinion than them. I'm pretty sure most sane people would understand that it's his opinion, and he doesn't have to like X-Death.
Apart from having a backstory that may as well have been made with Mad Libs, nothing about this guy is subtle. All he does is boast, monologue, and laugh. I'm not exaggerating. Before the final battle with him, he literally does all three!
Actually, that's kind of the point. Final Fantasy V was meant to be a satire on previous installments in the series. In other words, X-Death is not supposed to be taken seriously. Granted, I can't really blame you for not knowing that since the game did a terrible job at making it clear that that's what they were going for, but my point still stands.
I don't think I need to say anymore. This cliche speaks for itself.
You hate them.
I hate them. Everyone known to man hates them.
Just so you guys know, that was me who said you hate them.
Yeah, and it doesn't make much sense when you say you hate them before the other one says I hate them. You didn't even need to edit that, since that was actually even safer to show than the other clips he used. Because the original clip he used was from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video game. It is true that television footage is very strict on copyright, but footage from games based off movies and TV shows is not that bad. You really took Jeepers Media's video way too far.
I just replaced when he said you hate them because, again, I don't know how to convert the video to an MP3. It's just that he showed, yeah.
You ask
Again,
what I'm
I
talking
edited
about?
nothing. That
The
just
answer
cut off
will
just
likely
like that.
make you convulse with bad memory-induced rage. Well, this is it.
Will you just get on with it already? This is a very cheap way to build up suspense. Seriously, it's no wonder Alex isn't proud of this old video, and why he stopped Josh from referencing it in the remake.
You ask what I'm talking about? The answer will likely make you convulse
Nope.
with...
Ow! Ow! What the heck was that for?
We are not referencing that video.
More moments later.
The physics of the game is always altered in these sections.
Not to be a grammar Nazi, but the physics is always altered.
Later.
I wonder if the designers of these 2D stages have ever been in water before. You do not sink in water. You float on top of the water.
You do realize that Sonic can't swim, right?
Both of your points are faulty. Your point was bad because even though Sonic can't swim, whether something sinks in water or not depends on their density, regardless of whether or not they can swim. And to Alex, it is true that people float on top of the water. They can only float on top of it for so long without having to keep themselves from sinking, which obviously, as stated, Sonic can't swim. So while you're not entirely wrong on that, you're not entirely right either.
12 seconds later.
Honestly, these levels are unavoidable.
Not all of them. In Super Mario Bros. 3, it's possible to beat the game without going in the water even once, thanks to the magic whistle.
This is a problem that I could say multiple times towards you in this entry, but it especially goes for this one. When Alex said these levels are unavoidable, he didn't mean every single water level in gaming history, and that's it for the video, so here are my final thoughts. Man, I really had a lot to learn when I first started out. There was stuttering and long pauses that I should have edited out. I kept reaching for anything that would even remotely be a fault. I showed about as much personality as a member of Organization 13, and I was too much of a wimp to show even 3 seconds of copyrighted footage. I'll admit, Alex's video had its fair share of flaws, but this commentary is the epitome of how to age terribly. Even for my first time actually using footage and voice in the video. I just can't believe how far I've come. Well, that's the end of the commentary. Thank you all for watching, and I am Meta527 II, signing out.